listening to my thoughts and trying to stop them from ruminating so much because they prevent me from sleeping well.
Mm.
Well, just remember, man, you get good at what you practice at. So if you feel like you have an inclination to do mobility, well, look what you get good at, your mobility. And
Hmm.
then maybe as your confidence builds and you max out your confidence, get it high enough, then you can start on something you're less confident about, like your pure aesthetics. And then one thing I've done when I had injuries and I was getting back into it, I might lift weights that are incredibly light, like incredibly light. And it would trip out some of the guys around me because they assume I would be lifting heavier. But I just got over a fucking injury. So it was embarrassing. So what did I do is I just reminded myself I'm professional. And this is what pros do. Pros work out with the weight they need to, and they get their
Mm-hmm.
gains, and then they move on. And over time, the weight they move changes. And
It,
and it's not that the other guys are bad for looking at me in a weird way when I was doing that. It was like curling tens, you know what I mean? And but it's
Mhm.
but I had I tore cartilage in my fucking sternum and in my rib cage. So like that's worse than breaking a fucking rib. That cartilage takes double as long to heal.
Yeah.
And so, was like, I look like a bitch, I feel like a bitch, but this is what fucking men do, right? A pro athlete is going to train with what he needs to get his healing. And it's not other people's fault that it looks weird. It does look weird. But, it also looks like I'm a guy who's getting through an injury. Depends on your background. If you got good eyes, you'd be like,
Perspective,
I bet
brother.
that guy's getting through it. Yeah,
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 perspective. Yeah.
yeah. Perspective.
I see that too in, for example, say YouTube. So I'll sometimes skim through the comments, and this is it's all perspective, guys. So just imagine, just like you said, it depends what experience you have. A guy that's very experienced at the gym knows that dude's way too big to be lifting that weight. He's nursing an injury. He's in recovery protocol. A newbie will look at you and be like, "What the fuck? That guy's weak as shit. Why is he only lifting that? He must be a noob. He doesn't know what he's doing." Right? It's all perspective. I have guys on my YouTube channel, and this reveals more about the psychology of the person. There are guys that tell me I have hair plugs. I kid you not. So they'll write comments like, "Bro, why don't you talk about your hair transplant or hair plugs?" And I'm like, "What?" Because I wore a cap for like the last month or so, I guess. It's been cold in Europe and I didn't feel like fucking doing my hair, super lazy. So I just put a fucking little cap on. And then there'll be other guys talk about, "Why don't you talk about how you're balding and shit?" So depending on the perspective of the person, yeah, depending on the perspective, dude, if the guy is balding, he will notice balding, or he will be hyper focused on anything that resembles balding, and he'll say you're balding. If the guy has, whatever their insecurity are is revealed in the comment section. So if a guy's thinking about getting a hair transplant, he's looking for signs of hair transplants. So he's like, "Why don't you just talk about the hair transplant you got, bro? That's why you got the cap on for so many months, because clearly you just went to Turkey or something, got your hair transplant done." And I'm like, wow, dude, this is so cool, like psychologically to see this play out. Because I'm simultaneously on steroids, not on steroids. I'm too big. I'm not big at all. I got a hair transplant. I also am going bald. And it's like, wow, dude, like this is a very fascinating thing to watch it happen. So the way people look at you, know that it's under the lens of their internal insecurities. So you're at the gym working out. That's essentially what's happening. If somebody's looking at you sideways, it's because that's how they think about themselves inside. But but imagine it's the experienced dude at the gym that helps you out. He'd be happy to help you out, bro. Your own idea in your head is that you'll get laughed at if you ask for help in the gym, or that someone will look at you sideways like you're stupid noob, wasting their time. But you go ask the most jacked dude at the gym, he'll be super delicate. He'll walk you through. He'll be very informative. He'll probably drop some fucking absolute gems on you that took his whole life to gain. He's just handing you information. And so what you're doing is you have a corrupted perspective on everything. And that's just what you have to remind yourself as. How you see things is not how they appear. That's one of the things in psychocybernetics. It's your perspective. It's the irrational part of your brain building, constructing something apart from what's actually there. Like walking in the forest and seeing leaves rustle in a bush and thinking it's a bear. It's that thing. Your brain is just filling in the holes. Unfortunately, we have negative voices in our heads from, childhood trauma, dude. So then our voices are filled in with those negative, strokes, I guess you could call them. It sucks because it's really hard to reprogram this shit. And honestly, the more I learn from like psychologists and shit like that and older people, it doesn't seem like it's something you ever really get rid of. It's a permanent part of your personality. It's just you learn to manage it. That's all.
Strong.
Yeah.
As an older
Um,
person, I could give advice on that. Focus on your goals rather than just healing your mind, because the mind's like a bazillion levels of shit. So if you focus on your goals, at least you can heal the shit around your goals and get something to show for it. And
Mhm.
that's comforting when you see something that you've done or you got. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would jump in and say as well that I noticed that the Bo was just talking about childhood trauma, and I noticed a couple of years ago when I was doing all the work on myself that the ideas that I had about myself, I came to the realization that those ideas are not my ideas. I've adopted those ideas because they were the ideas that people that were influential in my life in my younger years, as well as my parents. Those are the ideas that they had about me, but they weren't my ideas. I just adopted those because, yeah, it's a defense mechanism, and you adopt those ideas so that you can be safe as a child or as an adolescent. And when I came to the realization that those ideas were adopted and they were not mine, that was life changing. So when you're able to observe those ideas about yourself and realize that those are not actually yours, you can go in and start changing that paradigm. And the other thing that I would say is, I've noticed that, and this is one of the reasons why it's so important for guys to have a purpose and to be driven by a number of small actions every day that propel you toward that purpose. I noticed that the toughest time for me is in the morning, right after I wake up. All those thoughts and those ideas, all those negative self speak, all that floods into your mind. But if you have a purpose and you have all these little actions that are stacked up to propel you toward that purpose, you don't have time to sit there and think about it. Like, you have to get up. Like, my morning routine is I get up and like just a few minutes after I get up, I start meditating. When I'm done with my meditation, I get up, I get dressed, I go to the gym. After I go to the gym, I go to work. I don't have any time for any of those limiting self beliefs, that self talk. So those two things have been really, really key for me in getting me out of like those self limiting beliefs and those self limiting beliefs that keep you in rooted in that place where you can't rise, you can't level up, you can't lock in, you can't perfect. And then that purpose, you don't have time for it. You just don't have time for any of that self talk and those negative ideas. You just get up and you get after it.
Mhm. Agreed.
yeah, that's reminds me of the book of How to Stop Worrying, Start Living. Pretty much, there's a chapter that he talks about that about a father whose kids died both young, and the thing that kept him off his depressive state was just doing the work, doing something, keeping himself active. That's what took him out of his funk. So it reminds me of what you were just saying right now.
Yeah, and Bo's video this morning on his second channel, that goes hand in glove with what you're talking about right there. As far as actually living from an authentic, genuine place, like doing the things that drive you, the things that fuel you, the things that fulfill you, and doing that from a place of like true enjoyment, true fulfillment, and true authenticity, not projecting a public figure or projecting yourself
Mhm.
to your work mates or your family or significant other or children or anybody else. Just doing what is authentically you and
Mhm.
finding real purpose in that. And that is a lifesaver for guys. If guys can get that message and start doing that, guys wouldn't chase after women, they wouldn't chase after addictions. They would be so fulfilled in themselves by just doing what drives them and fills their heart with purpose and fulfillment. And
Mhm.
that's super essential.
Sometimes easier said than done, though.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Mhm.
it
Oh,
is.
that's the
Uh,
truth.
Carl Jung talked about you can get rid of all your neurotic bullshit if you follow your true purpose, but the true purpose is often terrifying. So that's the rub. You have to
Mhm.
face that terror and do it anyways. It's horrible. Who knows? Everyone's got different terrors, so it just depends, you know.
Mhm.
Well,
But
that's why Marianne Williamson says, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we're powerful beyond measure. That terrifies us. The
Yeah,
fact, the fact that we can be more than what we are,
Yeah.
and having to step into that light, into that potential, that can be scary as fuck.
I mean, I would add one of the things that terrified me years ago before I started going to the gym. The most terrifying thing was the time I stepped into the gym for the first time, and I was like, "Oh God, I have to actually do this." And now I've been going for 3 years. Not only do I enjoy it, but I'm actually now even mentoring other people a little bit. Hey, here's a couple tips you can try, so forth and so on.
That's kind of like with content creation with me. I have a lot of friends tell me that I should just get started because I have a lot of really good ideas. And it's been a few years now, and I still haven't. Trying to figure out some way to get over that first part, because if it's one thing I know about myself, the hardest part for me is just starting. After that, momentum is a little bit easier to hold on to. You have something to base your direction off of, but just getting started, it's crippling for me.
So I talked to an old man 2 days ago, and he was real loving. He was a real solid dude, and he was talking to me about how he was talking to his son, and about, hey, you should go after your dreams and take a shot at things. And it was good. It was a good talk. But I said to him, so what do you do with fear? And he goes, oh, fear. Yeah. He goes, hey man, you can have fear to your dream, but you can have fear going into your factory job. Like, you just don't want to do it today, and you don't want to bump into that person, and you're concerned about something. He goes, fear is just normal. And dude, the way he said it, it's just normal. Yeah, you always deal with that. You just do that. You got to do that. It's
Yeah.
normal. He didn't put
gonna-
anything big on it. He didn't build it up, or he's like, that's just normal. Cops get afraid to go to work on certain days. Like, everybody gets afraid. But because we're doing a creative thing, or we're feeling we're special, which is fine, we overbuild something.
So
Brian,
I want
was
to bring
gonna
it back.
say-
I want to bring it back. Hold on, to the identity crisis that a lot of men are having, because it seems to be hitting kind of on a sore spot, even on the channel, but just all of us here in general. That it feels like at some point you're living a double life in a sense. Like, it's not really who you want it to be. Okay, you have this fragmentation of yourself. And to talk about the Carl Jung thing, I know you read it a lot, Kram, but the shadow self, dude, and integrating the shadow. And do you guys know about the shadow in the Jungian psychology? It's essentially
Vaguely.
it's kind of like your dark, repressed side. Think anger, think negative emotions like that, what's not socially acceptable. So the life you're really living on the surface is only what's deemed acceptable by society. So you've buried like selfishness, jealousy, fear, lust, anger, rage, all that stuff to conform to society. But these are traits that are deeply ingrained into you, like biologically speaking, in a sense. So we all have a shadow self that's essentially beat out of us by society because, hey, you're not supposed to have these traits, right? But we all live with them, and we're all wired at a biological level to have them. Go ahead.
Well, I might add just one piece on this, because we're modern, right? Just being masculine is now a fucking shadow trait.
Yes. Yeah. Anything man, pretty much. But so suppressing anger, for example, okay, and the shadow self can be destructive, of course, if you indulge in very negative behaviors in a negative outlet, for example, like joining a gang, killing people, shit like that, obviously you don't want to take it there. But the point is, you have primal instincts, and you need to somehow have a place where you can wield them with control. So for example, it's like, instead of suppressing anger, you channel it with discipline, with drive, with resilience. Right? Instead of denying ambition out of fear of arrogance, use it to push yourself towards success. So a thing that successful people do, this is the shadow self that they've integrated with. They think they're better than you. They legitimately believe that they are better, that they are different, that something about them is above you or above their competition in general, whoever that is. You have to. This is a shadow trait that you have to be humble. This is what society tells us. But you do have to have a deep-seated belief of superiority amongst everyone else around you, that you are different, that you are made of something else, that you are capable of more than the next person. Because that feeds into, I guess you could call it, a self-delusion of whatever it is, but it gives you a confidence. that if you don't believe that you're actually different and are capable of something no other man is capable, then you won't have the same juice needed to undergo a long journey that's going to have a lot of setbacks, a lot of roadblocks. So you do. There are, and rage. Rage is another one. We all get a taste of it when somebody gets dumped or loses their job or they get made fun of. So they use their anger, right? And they go to the gym and lift angrily, and it drives them. That's a positive integration of the shadow, using rage to propel you into a better body, which you start to feel better. You start to have better thoughts, hormones to get regulated, right? It leads you down a whole different lifestyle. It's a very positive outcome. But there are other aspects of your shadow that are very negative. Maybe you're naturally a bit greedy. Maybe you are a bit of a violent person. Maybe you do like giving out a little pain or taking a little bit of pain. Maybe you need to start challenging that by maybe you go to MMA class, bro, hit a bag, then spar with some people when you get good enough, and then you just keep that's your shadow being integrated into your authentic self without society telling you, oh, no, violence is bad. No, you can't hit somebody. No, you can't get violent. No, control your anger. You're not allowed to get mad. You got to suppress. What's the number one thing all men suppress in the modern world today? Anger, bro. Anger is the thing that drives a lot of men. And we're told that that's a bad thing to have, bad boy. Society's just wagging their finger down at you. Never, ever show an ounce of anger. Never raise your voice. Never get loud and never get physical. That's what men do. And you're supposed to teach young boys especially to integrate these negative aspects. If you want to call them negative, it's just the shadow self. These traits of masculinity or males, whatever it is, right? You have to integrate these into positive outcomes. So you teach a young man how to manage his emotions. You teach a man when he's young that if he wants to get physical and hit something, here's how you do that correctly. That if you feel fear, here's how you manage it correctly. Don't go down the fucking bottom of a bottle. Don't get into drugs, right? We all have a lot of negative shadow traits. I keep using negative, but they're not negative at all. It's just the shadow self that society is deeming negative. I highly recommend you guys work or at least read some more Carl Jung, like what Karam's quoting, and look into the shadow self and just deeper psychology, man, because this stuff's super important. It's like I said earlier, this is something that you will never get rid of. Some guys are more prone to get angry than others. Okay, that's just who you are. Some guys are more docile and timid. Other guys are just a lot more slippery when it comes mentally to convincing themselves, right? They're able to believe their own bullshit more. You might take more convincing, right? We all have, like, some guys are really super fucking jealous. Other guys don't give a shit. You have to understand, you have to learn the deeper negative aspects of yourself, at least the shadow. We'll call it that. That's what it's called. Learn your shadow self. Really, who are you? The repressed you, and integrate it with the rest of your life in a positive way. That's why I tell men, because this is a very shortcut to this problem being solved, get physical. Start going to the gym, start going to MMA classes, right? Go into contact sports. Why? Because these are two of the most primal things men pick up. Caveman lift rock. Caveman beat other man overhead with stick. It's very simple, but it solves two primal drivers that we have. Is that aggression, right? And competition. So you can get rid of both of those in a controlled environment where you're not out, unleashed on society. When you repress a man's anger too much or repress his ambition and competitive too much, what happens? He becomes either a fucking serial killer nut job who just goes on a killing spree because he's repressed so much shit, or he becomes like the psychopathic CEO who's just absolutely fucking his employees left and right, stealing, committing white collar crime, all this crazy shit. This is what the repression does to a man. Now imagine some of that shit building up in some men for years and years on end. And then you have the, breaking point moment where you read the fucking 5 o'clock news and it's like, oh my God, latest tragedy just happened. How many fucking dead reported? Well, this is what's happening. Men are living with a fragmented self-image, essentially. So yeah, I'll let you guys get into it.
Yeah, that was one of my whys about a pitiful self-image, but then and the funny thing is that when people even externally pointed out to me, like, why do you see yourself like that when no, you're not like that? Like, for example, that I know how to lead or start being so harsh on myself and actually take small victories, which they add up. For example, yesterday when I was told that I'm a flexible dude, pretty flexible, that actually pretty much made my day because I'm like, yeah, I am pretty flexible. I know that I am, and I see it because I've been doing it for roughly a month. I've been doing the mobility training in and out, but that's the thing that every morning I do that in the mornings, and it is pretty. Uh, has helped me a lot. But yeah, I say it. Yeah, that integration also. Now that you mentioning it, uh, I've had issues that about being prone to anger. I've seen it more from my dad's side, and you're correct. It's because he has had to suppress it because of how society deems him in a certain light, and then he doesn't know how to really vent on his anger. And no, he doesn't really work out and stuff or go to an MMA gym, just to give you an idea. He's always stressed out, and also his relationships suffer because of it, including with myself.
Mm,
And it's funny because you are saying all those June things about the shadow and all that.
mm,
Makes me realize that where part of my issues also stem from as well.
mm-hmm. Feel free to jump in, boys.
Excellent talk, Bo. That's
Yeah, of
awesome
course.
talk, bro. Love how you did that shit.
Yeah, I had a moment with the shadow self thing. I kind of lost myself a few years ago before moving to Romania. I was living in Phoenix, and like I said, it was that moment where you arrived and you thought you've done everything you've wished, and kind of lost my edge. And I was also kind of trying to be a good boy in society. I had very dark thoughts in general. Had a fucking crazy childhood. Split life living in Eastern Europe and growing up into what was like the peak of the destabilization when the Iron Curtain fell. So it was like the Wild West out there. You could buy drugs, you could get guns, you can buy, at the store I could get porn. As a little kid, my grandparents would send me out to the store to buy things like bread, meat, and whatever else. You'd give you cash. And then if I had extra, you could go into the store and buy whatever you wanted, all adult stuff, beer, cigarettes, whatever. As a child, you just had to have money. You handed it to the cashier, and they gave it to you. No questions asked, because obviously after a massive thing like the fall of the Iron Curtain, society's basically lawless in a sense as it's rebuilding itself. So I saw a lot of shit happen in the street, was a part of a lot of bad shit growing up, living basically on the street. I'd be out there all day as a kid, seeing shit that people were doing to survive. And I don't know, I have a very, in order to survive in that kind of environment, you have to build a very thick skin, but with spikes in a sense. So you have to be extremely negative. You have to almost like be that dog that barks really fucking loud and it seems like it's going to bite everyone just to protect yourself in that sense. So I developed that in a voice that, and this is, in my head, why I'm very brutal as a brute, basically, with myself, because the childhood experiences I've had, what it was like growing up in environments like that, and what happened to people that didn't have those kinds of personalities. I saw what happened to good, timid, nice people. They got taken advantage of and abused. And I didn't want to be a victim. So then I had to play along and essentially fake it till you make it. You pretend to be the tough guy until you're put in a situation where somebody calls your bluff, and then you have to do some of those really fucking crazy things on the street. So that's part of me figuring out my integration with the shadow self. Now, when I went to Phoenix, so to double that back, I'm now living this extreme opposite of, a stressful life. I'm in a gated community. I could leave my doors unlocked. My neighbor's like fucking 80 years old. I have nothing to worry about. I wake up when I want. I manage to retire my family, and I'm just staring around my life like, now I don't have anything to fight. There's no demon. There's nothing negative, right? There's nothing to protect myself from. And my shadow self is still barking in my ear, being extremely negative, trying to create demons, create problems for myself to, push on through, soldier on. And I couldn't. So then I had an idea of like, maybe it's time to discard this part of me. So I was trying to, in that time, throw away the shadow, not integrate with it. I can't be talking negative to myself like this. That's not my life anymore. That was so far in the past. You don't have to, pull from that kind of negative pain anymore. Maybe find something more positive. Maybe retool the way you talk to yourself and the way you think. Instead of that one moment where that thing was super negative, whatever it is, that childhood trauma that happened to you, let's think about the future. Let's think about the positive outcome you could have. I'm not wired that way. So that schism that I basically wedged myself with destroyed all of my ambition, destroyed all of my ability to maintain goals. I had zero consistency in my life. That was that picture too that we talked about last time, where I was like getting fat, super depressed. I had no motivation for the gym, nothing, because I tried to throw away a part of myself. So I had an identity crisis because I was used to being in like war mode constantly in my mind just to survive. War mode has served me well. When times got hard, I doubled down on that and I came out ahead always. When there was always pressure on me, I performed better and I had the most growth in my life. But war mode didn't serve me when life was just peachy. War mode was more like tormenting. At least that's what I thought. Because I have a machine in me that's built for war, but I have no war to fight. And I didn't know at the time that I had to create another one. I have to create enemies in my mind. I have to create situations in my mind where I could employ the shadow to do its job properly. You understand? So now I use maybe things like this. One day my parents will get sick. One day soon. One day soon I'm going to need a lot of money for treatments, potentially. One day soon I need to be prepared and ready for my future sons and daughters. One day soon, something might happen with my girlfriend, my wife, my future wife, shit like that. Maybe I may have the next year until something happens to me health-wise. I need to create an enemy. I need to create a state of panic and fear to get me moving every single day. Because I can't just think about the fucking, milk and honey, roses and sunshine. Because of what I've experienced as a child, ingrained into me a certain, machinery that I have to constantly feed along with who you know me as on the surface so that they integrate properly and I don't destroy myself and so that I can keep going. Now, we all have a machinery in us from our childhood trauma that you need to integrate in a similar fashion in your life. Because if you suppress it, you will end up the way I was ending up. Luckily, I saw it early enough so I didn't destroy myself and hit a rock bottom. But a lot of guys do end up in rock bottom because they'll feel guilty about their shadow self. Just like I was, I felt guilty because this isn't right. I shouldn't be doing this. I have everything, Have positive thoughts. Why are you looking this way at people? Why are you thinking these kind of things? You've made it. Relax, bro. But some people, we're just wired in that fashion.
So the veterans go through their PTSD stuff, and I met a lady, we've talked about this on the calls before, who coined the term adventure therapy, and she was working with vets who were doing cold water swimming and also paraglide sailing, something like that. And by putting themselves on the brink of life or death or things that feel like that through the swimming, life or death through the paragliding, they reset their bandwidth. But what I'm hearing you say, and it's much more empowering to all of us, is success therapy. Like just using the grind as a drama stress tool to balance oneself out, and look at pretend fake enemies as drivers. We did that as kids, right? Oh man, they're trying to shoot us. Hurry up, run, fucking roll, jump, get behind that tree. Like, as little kids, we did that, and it made us fucking hella agile and fit and strong. So that's a brilliant utilization. It's fucking super brilliant.
Thank you.
Badass.
It's kind of interesting that you bring that up because my own childhood was pretty rough. I was, even as a kid, I lived out of a car with my parents. I was homeless for a point in time. I was in pretty bad shape, and honestly, I'm the only one. I'm the oldest of 5. I'm really the only one out of my family right now that is in a decent place. I've got a decent job. I've got a roof over my head. I pay my bills. I don't have anything. It's kind of funny, Bo, that you bring that up because it's similar to how I was a few years ago. I may not have made it in the same sense, but it was like, okay, I'm stable. I've got food. I can take care of most of the stuff that I'm doing good. And then it was kind of like, okay, well, now what? And again, as you said, it's that whole perspective when I was growing up where it was like there were days where I was, a piece of bread or a piece of bread and a piece of bologna was what I was my dinner. It was pretty brutal at times. And then it's like, well, I don't have anything to fight. I mean, my job isn't the best, but it's okay. It's decent. I can come home. I can relax. I can do everything. And I think that was too where I started to say I needed to do the gym, give me a new challenge. It was what Brian had mentioned about the social media or starting a YouTube channel. I've actually started to put videos out there. Not great, but you know what? I'll see where they go. I'll try to figure something out on that particular one. Starting to try to find those next battles to do. I think it's really interesting. I hadn't really thought about it, but when you said that, it was like, wow, this kind of hits close to home.
Well, yeah, man. Congrats on the YouTube as well.
Thank you.
I do feel like it's my upbringing wasn't pretty either, and I feel like there's actually two versions of myself that I had to suppress at different points in my life. There was this more creative and sensitive side to me that I had when I was a lot younger, and I was reminded pretty frequently that I wasn't shit. And then when the family started falling apart and becoming really, really dysfunctional and abusive, I decided to suppress all that. I got rid of it. I stopped doing all of the creative stuff that I was doing and focused on just becoming this kind of hostile, violent person, because that felt like what needed to happen to not be hurt anymore, feel more safe. And that served its purpose for a little while. And then, you get into adulthood and you realize that's not really serving you well either, looking out at the world and only seeing that, looking at people and only seeing that. Very frequently, I still look out at society and I'm very, very unhappy with what I see, how society works, how most people are willfully ignorant when it comes to a lot of stuff. It really pisses me off, even though there's only so much you can do about that. And so, I started suppressing that as well. And the shadow work and finding new things to apply these suppressed parts of yourself to, I feel like it's or I guess I wonder how you're able to successfully integrate shadow work if you are at rock bottom and it feels like you have no resources to assist you with directing those things, because that's where I'm currently at. I've never been in a point in my life where it felt comfortable. I've always had to do roommates or do extra shit for money, and I've never had enough money to live the life that I want or the lifestyle that I want. And I don't even remember the last time I felt actually happy with myself or my life. And so when you're in a place like that, I feel like it's a little confusing sometimes trying to figure out how to direct those things properly when you feel like you've got nothing else backing you up. So I wonder if any of you guys know how to do that. Again, kind of a theme of the whole struggling with just starting.
I'd like to jump in and say that I can really relate where you're coming from, Brian, because after I went through what I went through over the last couple of years, the last year and a half, I've been completely alone. So I moved out of my home where my ex-wife and daughter now live into a basement apartment. And my family has essentially turned their backs on me, and the friend group that I had was in a religion. So when I left the religion, I lost my family and I lost my friend group. So, I still have my daughter, but I only see her once or twice a week. She's busy. She has her own life. So the last year and a half has been pretty much a crucible. And when you're talking about starting somewhere, when you basically have nothing, the point that I came to with embracing the shadow side was I had to come to the point where I realized that my situation was a blessing and I had to learn gratitude for it. That was a motherfucker to really come to the place where, like, I'm not just saying thank you, but I mean that gratitude from my heart. And the reason I was able to get to that place was because I recognized the blessing that it was. And I think one thing that we as men forget in this society that has been created for us is we're comfortable so much of the time. Like even when we're not comfortable, we're still comfortable. Like we have the things that our ancestors did not have. Like they had to work all day, every day, just to survive, to get food, to have shelter and warmth and the things that we really take for granted. And I'm not, I've had it hard too. Over the last 30 years, it's been normal for me to work 60 to 80 hours a week. That's a norm for me. But where I got to when I'm doing the work to embrace my shadow, all the things that society and my family and my religion said that was not acceptable to have as part of me, I just had to get to the place where I accepted myself. And that came through a lot of journaling, a lot of self-introspection, a lot of meditation, a lot of long walks. I had to get to the place to where I accepted myself, and then I started to accept those shadow side and the different parts of me that a lot of people said weren't acceptable, or there were parts of me that were cut off and put into a box way down deep inside of me. And I just had to get really, really comfortable being uncomfortable with those truths, those realities, and start embracing them. And I wasn't able to do all of it at once, and it took me a year and a half. And I finally came the end of last year. I finally got to the point where I was able to start stepping into the light and bringing all of those parts of myself into the light without apology. But it's you have to learn as a man, and this is just me speaking from personal experience, that you have to start from a place of extreme discomfort, and you have to start from a place where you don't have anything. Like nobody can do this work for you. And I think you know that, but nobody really gives a shit. Nobody's going to help you. When it comes down to doing that work, you have to just knuckle down to do it. And it sucks, but the only way through that, the only way to get to the other side of that is going through it. Like some people call it the dark night of the soul. Some people call it the valley of the shadow of death. And there's a lot of different terminologies that can be used to express that. And sometimes it feels like you're going to die. Doing that work is essential to come through that as a whole man, and integrating that authentic wholeness into yourself so that when you present to the world, it's unapologetic, it's authentic, it's genuine, and it's you. Hope that helps, man.
Mm-hmm. I think some
Yeah, I
practical
appreciate
things
that.
though. Yeah, some practical things. If you didn't catch it, is he did a whole lot of walks, a whole lot of journaling, it's really important. It sounds really stupid. Like journaling, what for? You need to put your thoughts on paper where you can really pull apart the ideas properly and expand upon them. You can't do that while you're talking in your head with your own voice, because there's too many things going on. There's too many ideas flowing through. Your stream of consciousness is basically rattled with like notifications on your phone. You're distracted by every little input, looking at the wall, looking at the clock, looking at the phone, looking at the screen. Your mind's already, jumbling 10 different thoughts together. So putting it down on paper will help you think clearly, see better about where you need to go, what path you need to take, who you are, why you feel this way, all that shit. That's the point of the journaling. The meditation stuff is going to be hard, but really you can boil that down into not necessarily like some monk shit meditating, but really sitting on those thoughts you just journaled and think about where you want to take them further. And then how do you put that into action every day? That's really how you want to approach meditation as a beginner. Okay, you're really trying to crystallize the image of what life you're trying to build, in essence. And the walks, that's how you trigger these ideas. Showers, you trigger these like shower thoughts. That's a thing. How many good ideas had you had in the shower alone? Or the conversations you have in the shower, right? It's kind of weird how every time you're stepping in the shower, you tend to have all these crazy thoughts. Isn't that weird? So that's the one time you're away from your phone, from screens, from everything, and you're just there with yourself in the water running down your body. But that's the time you have your deepest, I would say, like layer of thinking throughout the day, is that 10-minute shower you have. You need to basically manufacture those moments throughout your day until you have your light bulb moment about what you want in life. Okay? But when he says I went on a bunch of long walks, dude, he's not joking. Like there were countless fucking times, hours of walking to find himself. That's what he's saying. They sound like simple words, but you didn't see the work he put in the past year and a half. I know because I did the same thing. When I heard him say I went on a bunch of walks, it flashed back in my head like, dude, I remember walking for 3 hours at a time in one direction, walking back, just trying to find myself, trying to find what the fuck the point of my life was, you know, and all these other questions I had. It's a lot more than just, go on a walk and meditate. You have to put all these things together, but with purpose, right? Because if you don't, you'll be stuck in the same loop. And it's not even about like thinking of yourself in the point of like, I'm at a rock bottom or some other guys have more, some other guys have less. It doesn't matter. You know, it's all relative. Where are you in the self-development in that sense? Like how much work have you done to discover yourself? How much time have you dedicated to think about what the fuck you want out of life? Like in this past week alone, how much journaling, that type of meditation I mentioned, or walks have you done in the past 7 days? Brutal honesty.
Journaling?
Yeah, journaling, meditation, and walks. If you were to combine them all, how many hours do you think you have total in the past 7 days?
Maybe 2.
2 hours. See?
Maybe 3.
Maybe
somewhere
3.
Between 2 and 3 hours.
So 2 and 3 hours, right, in the past 7 days. Now, over the month, what do you think that is? So that is what? We'll just say 2. Let's be real. 2 and 8 hours, right? So you got 8 hours total out of an entire month. And of those 8 hours, how much of them were you really, really putting pen to paper, really focusing? Did you have your phone in your hand? Were you distracted by some other things going on? Like how much of that 2-3 hour block were you 100% balls deep in this?
Usually when I'm walking around, I don't have my phone out. Just partially because a lot of the places that I've lived and had to walk through, you don't want your phone out.
Don't want to.
You want to be looking around you at all times. I fell out of it recently, partially because of all the fires down here. But I went coming from the Pacific Northwest and growing up in the woods. I'm a big outdoors guy. And at the very least, I would go on a hike every weekend up in these, well, they call them mountains. I suppose they're mountains. They're not the mountains I'm used to, but you can still find some hills, and I'll always pick one of the hardcore ones it takes a while to complete, and it's by the time you're done, your body feels like jello. Those are the ones that I like. Although I do think that a lot of times when I go for walks or on those hikes, if I don't think there's as much of what you're describing going on as well. Now that you're talking about it, I wish it happened more. There a lot of times there isn't anything going through my mind.
You're getting away.
I'm in like purely observation mode, which sometimes can be fun too, and sometimes I suppose in a way could also feel meditative because of how much you're noticing. But that isn't really doing anything for me. I've always been an extremely observational person, so it's not like that's a skill I need to work on. So I suppose now when I go for any walk or hike, maybe it would be good practice to journal 20 minutes beforehand and come up with, okay, I want this to be on your mind the entire time you're doing this.
Bring it with you, bro. Do that before if you need, but bring it with you. A lot of my friends, including myself, we have one of those little pocket journals. Bring it with you when you get to the top of the hill, whatever they call that mountain, and you get some alone time in a cool little spot. Just start taking that observational skill you have, but focus the light inward. So start observing your life objectively, your decisions you make objectively, the path that you want to take objectively. Start really evaluating yourself with that objectivity that you have. Yeah. And just watch your life as a third person almost and go, well, what decisions, what paths, what actions have I taken? And could I track them to where I'm at today? Right. And then you go, okay, fine. So if all these things have gotten me where I am now, where do I want to go? And then what are the moves I need to do to get there? So by turning in that observational side you have inward, you're able to start getting these answers. Now, on the hikes for you, it's amazing because you're already you grew up in an environment where you love to be outdoors and all that stuff. You just have to bring these little skill sets together, dude. And I guarantee your light bulb moment. It's a few of these away. You're not going to need to go hiking every weekend for a year. I'm telling you, once you combine your natural skill set with the love of the outdoors and you make it purposeful. So don't go hiking to simply just be in awe with nature and get away from the life that you have, the grind, the daily, struggle and shit.
That's usually what it was.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're on the surface. You're kind of resetting the tachometer from being redlining back to something normal until the next weekend comes where you're already at redline again by Friday and you're resetting in and you're just surviving week over week over week. And the hikes are really what's decompressing all that trauma from the week that's building
exactly
up.
What it feels like. Yeah.
Yeah. So I know because I did the same, and then I had people naturally show me like, hey, today we're going to go out with a purpose of, some deep self-work. And I was like, what the fuck are you guys talking about? We're just walking in the woods. And, I had basically that's how the name Tribe of Men came about. And I had these dudes that were already doing this shit. And they're already like, we're sharing deep stories. This is if you're in a group, you could do that stuff too, if you're blessed enough to meet. But I also went on hikes by myself where I just needed alone time, me time. Like, I don't want to hear about anybody else's shit. And I also, I just need to really focus on myself and maybe some things I don't want to share. Too deep, not ready. I'm dealing with too much shit, So I went on those same hikes by myself and I just took like a day to myself to not get away from my life, but to really figure out like, where do I want to go? What do I want to do? And how the fuck did I end up here? And how do I get out and shit like that? So go on the same hikes you love, those brutal ones that make you feel like fucking jello. Pack some nice snacks. You already know the deal. Something you can enjoy while you're up there. Get that little notebook, dude, and just sit there and just treat that like a mental day. Now we're observing ourselves and our lives and let it get uncomfortable because you might have to own up to some shit to yourself. That's when these conversations will happen. When you're up there, you're fucking tired. You're recovering, huffing and puffing. You're eating some fucking strawberries, snacks, whatever it is that you brought with you. And now you're sitting there like, fuck, all right, now what? And then you just start talking to yourself, man. And that's how you start to figure out a map forward in life.
How long ago?
I just wanted to jump in real quick, Brian, and say that like the year and a half of journaling that I did was like I'd go to a coffee shop, I'd put my earbuds in, I'd listen to music, and I'd journal for like 2 or 3 hours. Like I had so much shit to unpack. And I did that day after day after day after week after month. And then I would take long walks or I'd take long drives or I would just go and sit somewhere. And all of that shit that I unpacked in the journal, I would, while I was on the walk or I was on the drive, I would just run that through my mind. So it was unpacked in the journaling. And then when I took the drive and I took the walks, I was figuring out, like Bo said, how the fuck did I get here? How did all of these things happen? What was my part? How did the decisions that I made factor into me being in this spot right here today? Like I'm on this walk right now, and I vividly remember taking a walk through a park, and I walked through a outdoor basketball court, and I was climbing a small hill, and like I had this suicidal ideation just come from nowhere. And it was because of the journaling that I'd been doing over the last week. And it was knee buckling. But I realized after that moment passed that had come because of the things that I was unpacking. Like it was dark. It was fucking dark. But as you do that journaling and as like Bo was saying, as you take those hikes and as you have that introspection and that observation, and you're going to have some incredibly bright aha moments that are going to be healing in that moment. You're not even aware that it's healing like that. But as you continue to do that work, you're going to, like I was saying before, continually be made more and more whole as you do that.
I think that's one of the reasons why I haven't done it as much, because I've already tried ending it twice, a handful of years back when I was at a real low point and I felt really lost. And with the situation I'm in now, some of those ideations have been coming back and making me wonder, like, I thought I made a lot of progress on myself. Why the fuck is this still here? Why, where, and then it made me wonder, does this ever go away? No matter how much progress you make, does it ever leave you? If you came that close and you tried ending it, does it go away? And it's the funny thing is, that many years ago, it was tied to the same thing that it's tied to now, which is this overarching and probably illogical idea that it's too late for you. You've hit a point now where
You're
it's
hella
like,
young.
I'm not though. I'm 35.
I'm
50.
47 and still trying to work through this. So by my standards, you're young.
Yeah.
All right.
Also, Brian, also that I'm 48, just came out of a 25-year marriage, raised 2 kids, and I struggled with that for a while. But 48, man, I mean, you have the potential. I have the potential to live until I'm 100. I mean, that
Yeah,
gives
but I mean,
me over 50 years, so it's never too late.
I have a question about the journaling. Since like all journaling is pretty much done by women, like women suggest like what kind of journaling to do. What kind of journaling do you guys recommend? Like, is it repetitive, Bo? That you're repeating the same stuff every day? Like, what I want.
No, we'll get back to you. Well, actually, let's just let Brian continue his thought. Go ahead, dude. The too late for me, yeah, because he was making a deep point, and we'll get to that one. Go ahead. You're saying the feeling of it being too over for you, basically at 35, yeah.
Yeah, like, part of you knows it's stupid. Part of you knows it's illogical because you think, well, you've got this much life left, but there's this other part of you that's maybe the part of you that you feel like you betrayed a long time ago, who saw yourself being much further along than you are now. And you don't forget that. It's not like you get older and you forget those, who you were back then and the thoughts that you had back then, those aspirations you had back then. And you're looking back and you're like, fuck, I let him down. I let him down bad. And you think, well, and as you're looking back at that, you're thinking, that was a long fucking time ago. And I know the whole comparison thing is dangerous and also stupid, but sometimes you can't help but do it, especially when you're feeling kind of lost, or your compass is kind of spinning around and not pointing north. You look at other people your age, and they're doing the things you want to be doing. They're making the kind of money that you saw yourself making when you were 10, 15 years younger. And the only thing you know how to do is hate yourself for it. The only thing you know how to do is be really fucking angry about it. And you don't know how to take that much, self-loathing and negative talk and turn it into something good, because it basically turns into this whirlwind of, yeah, bro, all these wrong turns you took, and now you're going this way, and now you're way the fuck over here, and it's 10, 15 years later, and then again, another illogical thought, it tells you it's going to take 10 or 15 years to get back there. And by that time, you're going to be too old to enjoy it to its fullest, while you still have some youth left in you. So you feel like this clock is ticking down, like, I want to get there as soon as possible, so that way I can enjoy that lifestyle for as long as I can, while I still have some youth left in me. My body's not starting to fucking fall apart on me. Because there's, someone said something like, actually semi-frequently I would hear, like, yeah, but like, you're only 35, you live to like, you could live to like 90 or 100. And it's like, okay, but a lot of those years at the end, come on, no.
Well, sure. Look, I just got over that feeling recently, and it's about me.
You're lagging, Crom.
You're kind of cutting out there, man.
You're coming in like a robot. Yeah, he's driving, so his connection's a bit compromised at the moment. But okay, I have multiple points while he's getting a better connection somewhere. A lot to unpack there, multiple. Let's go with perspective first, because that was one of the things you said, how much time I have. So the perspective is how much time I have left, like the glass half full or empty. You put a negative spin on the time you have left instead of a positive spin on the time you have left. You should be excited about how much fucking life there is in front of you to get what you want out of it. You act like you're 75 and you're about to, at 85, you're going to croak. Like your mentality is like, fuck, life's over. I'm 75 years old. Dude, I got 10 years left. My hip's fucking busted. Like, dude, you're 35. Holy fucking shit. And then 2, right? So we got to switch that perspective out. This all comes with time, by the way. So the whole going on hikes with a purpose, the whole journaling with a purpose, meditating with that purpose that we talked about earlier. I'll put this episode up, by the way, on the channel so you could just watch that stuff back, or anybody that's missed it. And when you go through more and more of those hikes, when you take more of that time to yourself, you're going to get these answers in time. Now, you need to know this. It's very true when they say this. A person overestimates what they can do in 1 year, but grossly underestimates what you can accomplish in 5 years. You can get knocked in 5 years into an entire different life that you can't possibly imagine. I'm not joking. Your life in 5 years, dude, you will not recognize yourself. Once you get the answers or whatever, like if I snap 5 years from now and you did all this self-work and you get your answers by, being purposeful, all this bullshit that we're talking about, just fucking put that effort in. I guarantee you won't recognize yourself, dude. 5 years ago, if you told me a YouTube channel, I would have laughed in your fucking face. I owned a construction company. I was doing remodeling. I was working with my fucking hands. It feels like a completely different person. And then 5 years from then, prior, if you would have told me I was a business owner and I busted my ass 100 hours a fucking week, I practically had no idea what a weekend was. I was basically working from the moment I woke up to the moment I went to sleep like a slave. If you would have told me in college when I was broke as fuck, living in a 650 square foot place that got broken into, within 30 days of moving in, they stole my TV, everything. I saved up money to buy a fucking flat screen TV. They stole it within 30 days of moving in. I had nothing. I had absolutely nothing in college. You're dead fucking broke. I was barely affording, my place cost $650 a month for 650 square feet. That's why I remember it. It was like one of those loft style studio apartments. It was a piece of shit in a bad part of the town. Yeah, back then, remember, this was 2012. So right now they're probably charging $1,500 for that place. And yeah, at least, yeah. And you still get robbed. And probably with inflation, you get robbed 3 times now instead of once. So yeah. But in general, just try to think. Fuck, I lost my thought. Where was I? What was I saying right before?
I can jump in. I have reception now.
Oh, you're perfect. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not saying this in a mean way. I'm just saying it in a superficial way. What you're saying sounds superficial. It sounds like a complete lack of meaning. So if you're focused on meaning, all that other stuff, it like almost evaporates. Like if you're enjoying, not just enjoying, I mean, fuck enjoying. If you have meaning, if you really value what the fuck you're up to, then it's so hard to do the comparisons. I just recently got out of that. Like I have my nice car and some few things. I still wanted to drive into a tree like 4 months ago. Like I was like, okay, I got my car now, or 3 months ago. It didn't even matter. It didn't even matter. It's like, I'm like, dude, I'm not going to be happy unless I'm going after what I really want to do. And if I'm not doing that, dude, nothing's going to satisfy it. So that's where that Carl Jung line really hit me. I'll have all kinds of neurotic, stupid, weird, goofy shit, or I can go after what I really want to do, face that fear, and then everything else is comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Like the whole life gets comfortable if you face your true fear and go to your true calling.
Yes. And then going back to how much change you get in those years, because that's where I lost my thought. So before I even started the business and all that, you tell me in college as I'm getting robbed that in 5 years this would be my life. I would look at you like you're insane, bro. I don't know anything about businesses. I wouldn't even attempt that. I wouldn't even have the courage to. I'm still an introvert. I don't even like going out and speaking to people, let alone start a business and deal with clients. Like your life can transform in 5 years. So you're not 75, right? It's just a combination of everything we've been saying with what Karam just said too, facing that pain point of who am I? What do I really want to do? Because even if you get all the goals you have on the superficial level right now, where I should be, what I should have, all that shit, the emptiness inside won't be fulfilled. until you find your real, like what you really want. Like this hole will follow you forever until you really get down to the nitty and gritty of what it is you want out of life truly and start to work towards that.
Yeah, and I'll add to what these guys just said. Just a year ago, what Bo and Karam were saying pissed me off royally, because I'm like, well, you guys just don't understand. I'm going through these things, and you guys are just saying, well, find a purpose, or get after, lock in and level up, do all these different things, and you guys just don't understand. And it took some real intention, and just day after day of doing the shit that I had to do to finally get to the point where I saw how that narrative makes so much sense. What Bo and Karam were just saying, I had to do all that work on myself and quit being a victim. I had to quit being a victim, and I had to quit living in survival and lack. And I had to make the choice that I'm going to step into this. I'm going to start doing these things that are healthy. And then when that happened, I had a 180 flip. And now that's my perspective as well. But it took a lot of work. It took a lot of intention. It took a lot of very purposeful action to step into aligning with that narrative that I'm not a victim and I can create the life I want. I just have to do it.
I would even add one additional thing in. I was in that same mode, that victim mentality mode too, which absolutely sucked. But for me, I had the step before I could even break out of feeling like I was a victim was accepting that it was okay to feel the way that I felt. It was okay. I was basically upset at the fact that I was angry at myself, so to speak. It was this weird situation. So I had to first say, I'm okay to feel this way. Yes, I feel it's okay to I've been wronged in my life. It's okay to feel upset. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be pissed off at my mother, to be pissed off at the fact I didn't have a father figure in my life, to be pissed off at all this other stuff. I mean, I remember when I started to journal, one of the first things I did was I wrote a letter to my mother, and I was vicious. I was so angry at her, and I just wrote all sorts of stuff about why I was angry at her, how much I hated her, how much I despised her. And for me, that was kind of the breakthrough. That was the piece that started to say, okay, I'm still working. I still got a long ways to go. But for me, when I talk about the journaling, that was the journal. It was just, I'm no joking. I think it was like a 10-page letter I wrote to her. I never sent it to her. She's still alive. I don't know. Maybe I will send it to her someday, but it's beside the point. It was the letter. It was that breakthrough. And I started, and it was tough. Even talking about it now is still tough, but that was kind of that piece, was first allowing myself to be okay with feeling that way. But then it was like, I can't stay there. As you mentioned about being a victim, it was like, okay, I'm here now, but now what's done is done. I can't change what's in the past, but I can certainly stop letting myself be that way.
Amazing, bro. Thank you.
That's an excellent share. I want to point out something stupid about myself, so it maybe makes people feel better. Last night I slipped into feeling like a victim for about 3 minutes, and what was it over? Because I'm thinking of getting a Rolex, and I'm like, and I swear to God, I started fucking feeling like a fucking victim, and I was like, holy shit, that's so fucking retarded. But no, it was gnawing at me. And I was like, yeah, but I wanted this since I was a kid and blah, 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 blah. And they make it hard to get this fucking watch, or I have to pay double the fucking price, blah. And dude, I was whining, but it was it tapped into the victim feeling, right? So I was like, well, how do I remedy this? Right? I was like, oh, gratitude for what I have, okay? And then focus on what I'm really doing with my life, and maybe be a little bit humble, right? And that's self-control. You're using your brain for a change, right? Use your brain for a change. That's what you're doing. Instead of it using you, you're using it. So, I felt old when I was 20. I felt old a lot of times when I was young. So I totally get it. You got to use your brain for a change. And, if you have, good looks, youth, and a few things, a lot of people don't have that right now, right? You have it, someone else doesn't have it. So gratitude is the only thing that works to make you appreciate the stuff you have. And I'll tell you a dirty story about gratitude, a very dirty story. I was a cancer patient, and I was standing in front of Stanford Hospital on a little, sunlight break from my fucking room, and a guy wheeled out in a wheelchair right up to my fucking leg. I mean, the motherfucker thought he was gonna fucking hit me, and I was thinking, this cocksucker right here, I'm just trying to be peaceful, and he's got to almost fucking hit me with the chair. It's fucking retarded. But then I was like, this is a spiritual message, maybe. And the motherfucker was like an inch away from me. He turned the wheel, bro. They get all aggressive. I've seen some Saturday Night Live skits about certain shit, like certain people very aggressive with their crutches or the wheelchair. And he had that angry wheelchair roll right up on my ass. Then he turned, it's an inch away. And I'm like, fuck, man. I'm standing there with my pole. I've got my fucking chemo pole. I'm standing outside, feeling not awesome. But getting some sun, and I started thinking, hold on a second. All right. And then I looked and I went, oh, I feel sorry for him. He's in a fucking wheelchair. And I looked at his legs and they were skinny and his upper body was normal. And I was like, oh, he's been in the chair for a long time. Look at that. And then I was like, oh, the sympathy shit, right? And then I was like, hold on a second. This guy probably wouldn't want to be in my position. Like, I have the cancer and I have a live or don't live situation. He, on the other hand, definitely gonna live. Like, in a year from now, he could be still fucking in the chair, rolling around, doing what he does. Maybe he gets those erections that occur all the time without him even knowing it, even though he doesn't feel it. He still gets a fucking stiffy. I'll be fucking worm food in a year from today. He's got a little stiffy, right? So I'm like, maybe I could appreciate the fact that I have cancer because I'm in a live or die situation, but this motherfucker's never going to walk again. And you know what? I like live or die. I don't want like the mediocre. And I was starting to look at it. I was like, this guy's mediocre. He's guaranteed life for quite a while, but he's got to be in the chair. Now, what would I prefer? To have guaranteed life, but live in the chair, or have life or death, we don't know. But if I make it, I could fucking run again. And I was like, man, I'm fucking happy. I could run again. Instead of I might die, it's I could run again. This guy, man, he's never going to be able to walk. Fuck, I feel good. And then I started to feel bad about that. Like, and then I went, no. Most people prefer the guaranteed outcome. Most people are extremely risk adverse. Because of that, if he were to pick life or death or be in the chair and guaranteed life, most people would pick guaranteed life in the chair. Because just look at their lifestyle choices, look at their business choices, look at everything. They pick the safe route most of the time, all the time. So I was like, dude, I bet he's really happy being in that chair. I bet if he knew my situation, he would feel sorry for fucking me. He'd have pity on my ass. And so then I just was like, you know what? We're both good. He's good. I'm good. But I'm like, I'm going to fucking stoke myself out. Then I felt still a little guilty. Like, wow, dude, I feel so much more privileged than that guy in the chair right now. The worst thing that can happen to me is I'll die. I'm going to be in the chair. I got hope. I got fucking hope. I mean, it's dirty, bro. That's a dirty story, but that was a real life, spiritual, God blessed scent. And I went back to my room all fucking stoked and happy because I used my brain. I used my brain for a change. And I got to access good, positive chemicals. And it was fantastic. So let these,
Amazing.
it's a story. It's a story. So let it sink in. And who knows how it might activate in you when you're ready.
Yeah, I want to share a story too, real quick. I lost my daughter died when she was 21. And when her cancer came back and they re-diagnosed her, and then they let us all know that she was terminal, she had about 6 weeks left. And I went into the hospital room with her, and she just wanted to talk to me about a couple of things. So everybody else left, and I was sitting there by the side of her bed. And 21 years old, she moved out of home when she was a couple of months after she turned 18. And she started crying, and I remember this vividly, the couple of conversations that I had with her about this. And she said, Dad, I don't want to die. I'm so young and I have so many things I want to go and do. I have friends I want to go and spend time with. I want to go to different places in the world. I want to try different things. And we had this conversation twice. And, I've never, obviously I'm biased about this because she's my daughter, but I've never seen anybody approach death with more strength and grace than she had. But, being a human being, she had those emotions. And in the 2.5 years that have passed since I lost my daughter, every time I've come to the place where I just wanted to give up and I just wanted to sit there and count all the ways that it was hard for me and what's the purpose in trying anymore? What does it even matter? I've lost everything. I call those conversations with my daughter up in my mind every time that I feel that way. And I have to be super hard on myself and look at myself in the mirror and say, motherfucker, you're still here. It's just like Haram was saying. Your daughter died and she's on her deathbed telling you how much she wants to live. And you're still here. You have life. You have your health. You have everything. And you're going to give up. You're going to quit because it's hard for you. You're going to quit because things aren't working out for you. Every time that comes into my mind, I bring up those conversations with my daughter and I realize how blessed I am, how fortunate I am. Now, I never would have wanted that to happen. I never would have chosen that. I would have gladly gone in her place, but that's not the way it turned out. It turned out that I'm here and she's not, but she had a hunger and a zest for life. And I'll be goddamned if I'm ever going to give up, because there are people out there that would love to have my life, no matter how hard it is. There are people out there that would love to have my existence, where I live, the money that I have, the opportunities and potential that I have. So like Haram said, it's a story. It's my personal story. Take from it what you will, but I take inspiration from that. And I use that to get my ass up out of bed every morning and do whatever the hell I need to do to live up to my fullest potential and milk every last bit of juice from life. So, like I said, man, it's like Karam said, it's a story. Take from it what you can, but you're blessed in ways that most people would love to have your life. Just leave it at that.
Thanks for sharing those stories, guys.
Absolutely.
Somebody else
Yeah.
was asking earlier about how to
Excellent story, Brian.
Yeah, dude.
Appreciate
Thanks for sure. Makes you feel like 35 is not that old, huh? Yeah. Yeah.
Also, you can think about the childhood abuse and be like, I'm not going to let them win. If I kill myself, they win.
Mhm.
Fuck that. I ain't doing it.
It's a good point. Every day that I'm alive, I think to myself, I'm proving to the rest of my family that I'm succeeding, even though they haven't.
Dude, I just wrote that down in my journal this morning. Some of the things that I'm stepping into right now, I just wrote that down. Like that was a closing paragraph in my journal entry this morning. I'm like, I'm doing this because it's a massive fuck you to everybody who walked away from me, everybody who didn't believe in me. That's why I'm doing this. Yeah, not the only reason, but it's one of the reasons. So I can show them what they walked away from. I can show them what they'll never have in their life again.
Oh.
I know it's one of those things where you say to yourself that oh my God, my cat's going off in the background here. So it's one of the things where you say to yourself that I'm just not going to let it happen. You know what, where you take that anger, that negative emotion, and you turn it into a positive.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really good that we share these things, share suicidal ideation. Let's talk. It's good that we're talking about it, getting it out. That's so fucking valuable, because if you have that feeling and it's starting to occupy your mind, that's a problem. And it's good to share it with the group and deal with it while it's manageable and stuff like that. In hypnosis, one of the things that we do is you give someone a second choice that they believe in. So when they think of suicide, they're like, oh, this choice solves all these problems. And in a sense, they see it as a positive. So if you give them a second choice, not only, it's got to make sense to them, but when they can get bought into a second choice, no one commits suicide after they find a second choice that feels right, that seems right. So you can self-doctor yourself with that. Find a second choice. Like when I felt like fucking driving into the tree at 90 miles an hour on a hairpin road, I was like, dude, my car deserves better than that. It's a beautiful car. It doesn't deserve the fucking. It's a fucking wonderful vehicle. What did it do? It didn't do anything. It's because I hate myself right now. I didn't do anything wrong. It's sacrilegious, bro. I can't hurt this car.
It is very important to be talking about these kinds of things. I wanted to piggyback off that statement because I worked during the pandemic as a resident doctor in New York City when it was real bad. And, you sort of had to put those emotions and everything you're feeling, and especially that survivor's guilt some of you guys were talking about over there. I felt very similarly a lot of the times. Why not me? I had people's COVID breaths going into my face, while I'm doing compressions on them or whatever. They none of them were gonna make it. And it really took maybe a year, 2 years later going through therapy to really just actually process everything and really let it go to realize, to be grateful for what you got. And it was despite that or because of that harrowing experience that I realized I had to live for myself and, live my best life. So that's when I started operating my life in that way, getting a good job that ensures that I can do what I like, travel and go see my friends if I wanted to on a weekend, et cetera, et cetera. What a time to join the chat, by the way.
Right.
Yeah.
Very strong
Good share, man.
stories. This
Good,
is awesome.
good.
Absolutely. I think the biggest wake up for me was when I came to the realization that it's okay. I think Bo mentioned it in his video. It's okay to have days when you have dark thoughts. It's okay to have days when you just feel absolutely fucked up and drained and broken in every single way. You don't need to stay there, but that there's nothing wrong with it. You don't have to feel bad for the fact that you feel bad, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and as you do the work, the time passes, and eventually one day you wake up, you look around, you pick your head up, and you look around, and you're like, God damn, I made it. Like the 2.5 years since I lost my daughter, it's pretty fucking dark. Losing daughter, moving out, ending a marriage, but here I am, and Brian, it's going to be. You're going to reach a point as you continue to do the work. You will inevitably reach a point where you'll pick your head up and look around, and you're on the mountaintop instead of in the valley, and you're gonna look around and you're gonna say, I made it. I made it through all of those dark nights. And when you get to that point, brother, you'll be able to do absolutely anything in life. Like nothing will be able to stop you because you went through all that dark shit by yourself and you made it through every dark day. And just do the work. Just keep on showing up for yourself every day. And you'll eventually get to the point where you look back and you're like, yeah, made it.
100%. Highly agree with that statement. Because that's exactly what I can say was, how I felt, it took time, but, those are really, really dark times working at that time. Now, I live in a house, I have a dog. I've been to so many places around the world. Well, I'm going to Romania, going to Bucharest in September,
Hey,
for example. I was just
Hell
there
yeah.
last year, actually. Had a great time. I love, man. I don't know if you saw one comment of one of your videos I made where I went, when I said that I went and I literally befriended like some cool ass, 21-year-old
Hell
girls there. They took me out. We had a great time.
Hell yeah.
So I'm definitely going to go back and, yeah. I ain't get married in this country, boys. But I digress. I'm sorry to spot.
Yeah.